Hello, welcome to the video. I'm here to talk about VR, which is different. I have not previously covered VR. We've talked about it in streams a little bit, but surprise, surprise, I bought myself a headset this month. That was I think it's my yearly splurge. I was gonna say my monthly splurge, but it's kind of pricey even though I got a used model. I got the 256 gig model for about 300 bucks. It's in okay condition. That's sort of a different discussion, but what I wanna do here today is go over like what the experience has been like so far. It's only been a couple of days, but I feel like there's some kind of value in capturing some incredibly early impressions. And then as I sort of progress with the headset, and if I really come to enjoy it and get invested in the whole thing, then I can share different opinions and maybe talk about specific games, etc. But I'll say right up front, and this is something I'll return to at the very end of the video, one of the most exciting things to me about VR is not so much like the possibilities of game design facilitated by the format or like interactive movies and entertainment and stuff. No, it's really about inhabiting spaces. And this is something that I've talked about in relation to just about every kind of media that I've covered here on the channel: animation, video games, even just live action shows and movies. One of the things that I love the most about any variety of media is the opportunities it gives you to inhabit various spaces contained within it. That was probably a weird way to put it, but yeah, when you're watching something and you feel immersed, it's just fantastic. And some pieces of media do it much better than others. And simultaneously, some spaces are just ones that I would much rather inhabit than others. Spaces can have completely different tones, completely different art direction, color, everything. There's a huge amount of variety there. And while it can be done very effectively in traditional forms of media, VR certainly does offer just tons of opportunities to enhance that feeling, to enhance those kinds of experiences in a basically brand new way. And after messing around with a friend's headset for a little bit, I just said, okay, if I get the cash together, I think I'm going to take the dive. I'm still honestly not sure whether I'll hold on to it forever, because a quick note here at the top is that it does ultimately feel like a toy. A lot of the experience here on the Quest 2 is surprisingly shallow in certain ways, while there's plenty of positive to talk about too. And even now I can see a future, a near future, in which I'm just like kind of shrugging about it, like, I got my kicks from it, and that's kind of it, if it's not constantly delivering new, really interesting stuff to me, or I can't find really interesting things to do with it. I could see myself falling off of just the VR thing in general, but right now, I'm still pretty darn excited about the whole thing. I've already spent a decent amount of cash on software, with some standout games already on kind of the top of my list. But briefly, I want to say that the storefront here on the Quest 2 is, like shockingly shallow. And there is a lot more than it appears. Part of the issue is how it sort of displays things to you and represents different categories. There's also like app lab stuff you can find if you look hard enough, but that's like technically experimental stuff that hasn't officially been released. Then you also have third-party providers of software, or third-party platforms such as SideQuest, which is a major topic when we get into talking about the Quest ecosystem in general. I have started messing around with that too. But for the moment, I just want to say, it kind of surprised me a little bit just how little really sparked my attention when I got into the Quest 2 storefront, because we know just how many billions of dollars Facebook/Meta is spending on this whole ecosystem. They really want to attract developers. They really want to double down on the metaverse thing for some reason. They are apparently losing money on that front so far. I think they're also predicting, a 5 to 10 year timeline before they really feel like metaverse stuff is present and available and fleshed out. And just a quick side note, the metaverse stuff that I have come across on the storefront or tried out for myself is by far my least favorite stuff in relation to the whole Quest 2 experience. Like, it looks ugly most of the time. It gives off this weird corporate vibe of like, it's for business, it's for work, but it's also fun. Don't you want to have fun at work? And I just have so many problems with the vibes, with the intentions of a lot of those kinds of apps and spaces. Not a fan at all. No thank you. But in terms of games, I mean, it's a pretty stark contrast between the really highly regarded stuff that you've probably heard of, even if you don't engage with VR stuff yourself. These really famous games that are indeed of extremely high quality, and then you have stuff that really just feels like shovelware and doesn't feel optimized for the hardware. It doesn't feel especially thought through. It's just like, oh, well, we wanted to put something on the storefront, so here you go. Even the price doesn't always reflect the quality. Prices in general seem to be pretty darn high. Not everything has a demo, and that's one thing I'll say for certain is that we need a lot more demos. We need a demo of basically everything. If you're a VR developer of any kind of software, please just some kind of demo, even if it's the shortest thing ever. It is so important to be able to get some kind of taste of what it's going to feel like inside that software, which sounds like a strange sentence, but it makes sense in this context. It's extremely important, even just when it comes down to comfort level with various stuff and locomotion in games and the intensity of what's going on around you and how the controls will work with that game. Please have some kind of demo or decent preview of what the app or the game is actually like. So yeah, it ends up feeling really shallow, weirdly enough, and you start seeing repeats of the same games over and over again in different like subcategories, and you hit the end of lists pretty quickly, which is not something you can really say if you're browsing stuff on like Steam or any major console storefront. Like, the lists of games and different categories of games are basically endless. That's not what's happening here. It's clearly still not mainstream at all. It's still niche, even though it's getting much closer to mainstream via the Quest line of headsets. So there's that. Of what I've played so far that I've actually like purchased the full experience for, Coaster Combat is really, really good. Like, the art direction is great. It's definitely, like a lot of stuff that runs on the Quest 2, it is very simple in terms of, like, I don't know, poly counts, visual fidelity, all that. But the art direction saves it most of the time. Relatively gentle coasters, so they're exciting, but they're not insane like another kind of shovelware roller coaster app that I found on the storefront. And you get the rail shooting, or you can just ride it for fun, different difficulty modes. A great deal of variety in the different coasters. It's excellent. I think it's like $10 full price. I was so pleasantly surprised by Coaster Combat. It's not even a good name, but that's been a really good one. King Spray, the graffiti art one, is also wonderful, but you really do have to be in the mood for it, I think, because after you get past the novelty of, oh, I'm like in a weird virtual space and I got every can of spray paint I could ever want, then you actually have to buckle down and be like, okay, what am I going to paint? And as far as I know, you don't have free movement, so you're kind of teleporting around, which isn't my favorite option. Anyway, still very fun. I'm sure I'll sink a bunch of time into that one soon enough. And then, of course, Beat Saber. I finally caved and said, yeah, I'll pay full price for Beat Saber. It's just, the reputation is basically untarnished, even beyond the VR, well beyond the VR community. It's just a massive rhythm game. It's just very fun. The environments, well, it's not that many environments to speak of, really. Maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I have to dig a little bit deeper, but I was hoping with the full version, hey, you can customize your space. You can have some kind of lounge. Other games do that. King Spray does that for sure. And this is what I'll return to at the end. Spaces are so important to me in this medium, and Beat Saber definitely focuses much more on the gameplay itself. That's A-okay. Like, that's a completely valid approach. It's found great success by doing that. The soundtrack is fine. I don't like most of the music, but of course they DLC out a million other songs you can buy, so I guess there's that. I wish there was some kind of custom beat mapping option. Maybe you'd have to hack it to do that kind of stuff, or Steam mod it, or whatever. But yeah, just vanilla version of Beat Saber has also been a lot of fun. Outside of that, I've tried a couple of the sort of movie things, the VR version of Free Solo, and there were some Jurassic World shorts that were kind of neat, in my opinion. I don't think they're insanely popular, but those were pretty good. So I'm exploring, I'm looking around. As I said, maybe I'll do reviews or impressions videos of specific games and apps on here if there's an interest in that. But for the moment, I'm just kind of grasping around, looking for games and virtual spaces that I want to inhabit for prolonged periods of time. And that leads me to the final point here, which is just sort of my core wish and want from not just the Quest 2 and that ecosystem, but VR in general, as a format, as a medium. I really just want spaces. And I mean, that doesn't have to be the limit, of course. Like, having gameplay is very welcome in a lot of cases. But some of the best moments I've had in VR, just over the short amount of time that I've been involved with it here, have just been extremely casual exploration kinds of settings. There's some adventure games that kind of facilitate that. There's a meditation app called Melota, something like that. And my favorite part of that is just like your little hub island and just walking around. I sit underneath a tree. I sit underneath a virtual tree, and that basically fulfills like some kind of fantasy. Fantasy is not the right word. Something I don't know, a goal of mine is to have a nice yard and there's a tree and I can sit under a tree and just kind of be there. And I get it from this weird little meditation app that's honestly not very good overall. There is so much incredible potential. A lot of it's being explored, don't get me wrong, especially when you move into the side quest area and like super independent development. But in general, I'm just saying there is massive potential in the area of like making spaces that people want to inhabit on top of the more challenging spaces, horror stuff, exciting stuff, but even just like cozy games. We talk about cozy games in relation to PC gaming and console stuff. Oh my goodness, could you just do an immense amount with VR. Like, it wouldn't take much at all. Just craft some spaces that are very nice to be in. That's kind of it. I don't know, put me under an umbrella in a major rainstorm, or like in a little beach bungalow during sunrise or something like that. Like, just, it would be so easy. Just an apartment. Some of the like videos and stuff will have like just a really standard, slightly ugly like apartment or house or something. I was shocked at how cool even that is, just because it feels novel. Even just a small change, like, oh, in real life it's late in the evening, but here in the virtual world it's like midday, lots of natural light. I get to cruise around this space. There's so much to do there. Some of it has already been done. Some of it is already being explored actively by different developers, but I don't know. We're definitely not there yet. We definitely haven't realize all the potential, and I would just go crazy for some really solid experiences where I just get to be in great space. Might sound silly, might sound like I'm harping on too much about that, but for me, that is absolutely the biggest draw thus far. Games are fun, but that's ultimately kind of temporary, and I don't know, I could see myself wanting to sort of cleanse the palate of my brain eyes by just going somewhere, just going to a virtual space, spending some time there. Maybe I can run other apps in the background like Spotify or something. It wouldn't take much to get there. So I'm not on the side of all these crazy lofty hopes for VR games and apps. Like, that'll be cool too. It's neat to see the tech advance and to see really creative developers and artists use the technology to its fullest. Great. Looking forward to the Boneworks sequel thing coming out this year. But so far, I don't know. I even just like being in my little home screen and I get to choose what the background looks like. And I'm at peace. Weirdly, that probably sounds kind of stupid, but I am regularly in need of like stress relief and distracting myself or just calming down from various things. And wow, on that front, this has been really powerful. So we'll see how things change. Like I said, these are the earliest impressions I could do. And yeah, if you have suggestions, recommendations, feel free to share them. Also, talking in streams, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me, or on the Patreon page. You'll find the link down there or whatever. But yeah, it's been neat. Well, thank you so much for making it till the end of the video. Yeah, I guess that's all for now. Thanks for stopping by.